aside from that, once I locate that, then I'll read it on the, place it on the record, because I do believe that questions that were not asked should be placed on the record, so, what I'll do is just have it, is the witness ready to retake the stand?
Yes, Your Honor.
And would either side like him sworn in again?
No, Your Honor.
Reminder's fine, Your Honor.
And so you can retake the stand, and I'll remind you, sir, that you are still under oath.
Thank you, ma'am.
Friday.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we'll have the jurors come in. Welcome back. You may be seated. And once again, I'm glad to see all of you made it back. Mr. Becker, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Like I said, not a whole lot of additional questions, but I do want to get at a few things. One of the things you talked about, though, on your direct exam is that you have kind of a network of experts you rely on, because I think one of the questions was Mr. Stoughton or Professor Stoughton and Mr. Bloomfield were not part of your network. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Now, when terms of, obviously you get hired as an expert, you're retained to provide testimony, correct?
Yes, sir.
When you give a defendant access to the expert, do you get compensated for that as well?
No,
Is it
sir.
on top of, you get paid for this, do you get paid for?
No.
Giving them access to these other experts?
No, we don't charge a referral fee in our process, no.
But Mr. Bartel would be part of your network, if you will.
Yes, we would reach out to Mr. Bartel if his CV supported the need, yes.
And Mr. Blake would be part of your network as well.
I don't know that we've ever used Mr. Blake, but I would certainly consider his CV if we needed it, yes.
What about Dr. Kroll? Is Dr. Kroll part of your network?
Dr. Kroll is, yes.
Okay. So in terms of, in this case, did you facilitate, did you reach out to them to say, hey, I got a case for you, kind of?
No.
Okay. But that you provided that information to the defense so they could reach out for this case?
I don't know, I think they had already found them in this case. I don't know that I actually referred them in this particular case.
We talked a little bit about the International Chiefs of Police and the foot pursuit policy.
Yes, sir.
And then, like you said, it's not mandatory, it's adopted, correct?
Right, just to be clear, the foot pursuit considerations paper, I couldn't find an IACP foot pursuit model policy. What I saw was the second resource, which is a considerations paper, but I think that's what you referred to.
But in that considerations paper, they talk about foot pursuits are inherently dangerous, right?
They are, yes.
Do you disagree with that?
No.
One of the things they said, decision to pursue a fleeing suspect should not be regarded as required or even prudent in all circumstances. Do you disagree with that?
I do not disagree with that.
It all depends on the seriousness of the offense, the totality of the circumstances. That's what they talk about, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in terms of, people flee the police for all kinds of reasons, right?
They do.
Some people flee because they curfew violation to a serious felony offense, right?
Yes, sir.
And one of the things, I think it was Eric Heim, the podcast you talked about. Do you recall talking about sometimes innocent people are the most difficult people to deal with because they know you're innocent, you're still trying to figure that out, right?
Yes.
So when you're looking at a chase, it's based on the totality of the circumstances. You would never recommend a single officer chasing 4 armed suspects down an dark alley, would you?
Well, if you're talking about the 2 different types of chases, I think we may have discussed chase to pursue or chase to contain or chase to capture. It wouldn't be unusual to chase 4 people. It might be unusual to try to capture them all simultaneously.
So chase to contain is part of the thing. You keep an eye on subjects and call them for backup and trying to get, establish a perimeter, right?
Yes.
All right. We've talked about it, I don't know if you were here, but just the CLEA, just for the record, Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. You're familiar with that?
I am, yes, sir.
And that's kind of we've heard it, that's the gold standard, if you will.
That's their marketing slogan. I don't know that they're considered the gold standard universally. There's many organizations that do what they do, but I think their marketing slogan is they're the gold standard, yes.
Okay. And it's all, I think we heard that only like 5% of law enforcement agencies ballpark are CLEA accredited.
Yeah, I don't know the percentage.
Okay. But Grand Rapids is CLEA accredited.
They are, yes.
And you're not faulting, I mean, it's a good thing to have accreditation, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that CLEA does is they take a look at comprehensive and uniform written directives that clearly define authority, performance, and responsibilities. That's one of the criteria CLEA uses when they look at a department, right?
Okay, I'm sorry, I did miss that. We say that again.
They look at, is there a comprehensive and uniform written directives that clearly define authority, performance, and responsibilities? That's one of the criteria.
I don't know the CLEAs in front of me. I would take your word for it if that's one of their written criteria, yes.
And part of how they do that, though, is they bring in people from departments from all across the country, right? To look at the policies of a specific department.
I don't know that that's their policy, no,
You don't know
or
how, you don't know how
process.
it's done, you don't know the process of CLEA?
I know the process of CLEA, the evaluation model, sometimes just a couple of people that have been hired by CLEA, and they would be regional representatives, so I don't know how many or where they get. Typically, I know of one regional representative that will work with the agency. You've listed I think your broader question is, do they pull in people from across the country? I don't know that they do
You don't
that.
know that, okay. But part of the policy that you cite, though, the policy that's taken policy basis, the reasonable of any use of force is ordinarily judged on the totality of the circumstances, i.e. based on all of the circumstances. That's clearly Grand Rapids policy.
Correct, yes.
Thank you, I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Kliem.
Good morning.
On Friday, you were asked some questions about who Force Science has consulted with in this case. And you previously testified you consulted with defendants, students, community members, and prosecutors. Has the prosecutor's office in this case ever consulted with Force Science?
Yes.
And are you aware of whether the Michigan State Police investigators that are involved in this case has ever attended a Force Science course?
Yes.
Do you recall when approximately we retained Force Science?
I believe ultimately it was September of 2022.
Have you ever met with or talked with Officer Schurr about this case?
No.
Did you have any part in preparing Officer Schurr for his statement?
No.
Thank you.
Just one question, we never consulted with you on this case.
Not on this case, no.
There's been years in the past.
Yes,
Not this case.
I think there was maybe just 2 in the past, 2017 timeframe.
Thank you, I have nothing further.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
We see a couple of questions on the agenda, so I'll have my clerk wrap those for you. reports, autopsy, testimonial, and then human factors, or the other way around?
So we would start with the first. So we would look at the facts of the case, the evidence in the case that was available at the time. So that would be the videos, that would be the audio. And then when we're taking that and we're trying to evaluate the officer's decision-making and performance, that's when we consider the human performance aspects.
And next, when you got drives done in your head, how long approximately did it take to recuperate?
Well, once I realized that I was okay, it was probably less than 30 seconds. I think the initial shock of it probably took more time than the recovery did.
And then next, if the subject didn't have full control of the taser during the time deadly force was used, would you still consider it a reasonable action? Or is this what makes it reasonable?
Yeah, it's again, the standard I'm using is, could a person in the officer's position, knowing what they knew, reasonably believe? And so we don't look at actual threat, we look at apparent threat based on the available information to the officer. So if we later learned that if the officer reasonably believed he had full control, and later learned that he didn't because we could watch a video or do a still shot, we analyze the case based on the apparent threat from the perception of the officer at the time, not what we would later learn. Yeah, I'll just stop there. I think that answered it.
Any follow-up from that, Ms. Hamilton?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
And I don't see any other hands raised from the jury. May this witness be excused? Ms. Hamilton?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Becker?
And no question, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. You are excused.
Thank you, ma'am.
And defense, you may call your next witness.
The defense rests, Your Honor.
And Mr. Becker, are you prepared to put on any rebuttal evidence?
We do have one brief rebuttal witness, Your Honor.
Okay, you may call that witness.
Call Detective Jude again.
And Detective, since you were sworn previously, I'm not going to have